Anthony Draper please come to the podium to give the response from the graduates? Anthony is a liberal arts major with a minor in global cultural studies, and of course, he is a member of the graduating class selected by the graduating class to give the response of the graduates. Anthony.
Thank you. Like Dr. Schultz, I was similarly perplexed at being chosen for the speaker. I don't have the most awards, the most A grades, or the most friends. But I realized it was my charming good looks. So, dear esteemed colleagues of the class of 2018, it's an honor to address you today in front of our friends, family, faculty, and staff. And it is a particular honor for me to be responding to Dr. Schultz, a professor who I'm proud to call a mentor for these last few years. And I'm deeply humbled to have the privilege of addressing you today. And we're going to begin by asking you a question. What do you believe? It's a simple question, but it's not a question we ask each other too often. It's a question that we admittedly shy away from. It carries a weight of intimacy and judgment, interest and criticism. Or at least it does out there. At Concordia, we've been asked that question since day one. What do you believe? A Harvard graduate, speaking at his own graduation a few years ago, had a very accurate observation about the state of our society. He said, "They tell us that it is heresy to suggest the superiority of some value, fantasy to believe in moral argument, slavery to submit to a judgment sounder than your own. The freedom of our day is the freedom to devote ourselves to any value we please on the mere condition that we do not believe it to be true." That is an unfortunate and horrifyingly accurate statement. That cuts to the core of our cultural identity. You do you. As long as whatever you choose to do doesn't affect me. We're in an intellectual, ideological, and cultural stalemate. And each side sits in their trench, never advancing the line. But we have learned different. When society says it is heresy to believe the superiority of some value, we've learned that it's inescapable. When society says it is fantasy to believe in moral argument, we've learned the concrete benefits of engaging in such an argument. When society says it is slavery to submit to a judgment sounder than your own, we've learned that that demonstrates humility. And when society says you may devote yourself to any value you please on the mere condition that you do not believe it to be true, our only condition is that you are willing to test the truth of your value against alternatives. We've spent the last 4 years in a battleground of ideas. And yes, what we've experienced is more difficult. It is not easy to humbly admit you were wrong, and it's not easy to test your values. It is far easier to simply assume they're true and not bring it up with those you know disagree with you because that's uncomfortable. And people don't really like being uncomfortable. To quote Aaron Burr in the musical Hamilton, we'd rather talk less, smile more. That, apart from the singing in front of hundreds of people, is far more comfortable. But we've already shown that we don't mind being uncomfortable. We wouldn't be sitting here today if we only wanted to be comfortable. Between 7:30 classes and those awkward and uneven desk chair hybrids in half the classrooms, we know what it's like to be uncomfortable. Every athlete who's had to run to class immediately after practice knows what it's like to be uncomfortable. Every member of the choir who's had to stand for hours at a Concordia Christmas rehearsal knows what it's like to be uncomfortable. Every theater major who's had to watch an awkward stage kiss, or every theater major who's had an awkward stage kiss, knows what it's like to be uncomfortable. Every science major who spent hours in the lab, every worship band participant, every survivor of the Around the World semester knows what it's like to be uncomfortable. But these uncomfortabilities, or discomforts, are experienced at almost every university. These are physical discomforts. Concordia goes the extra mile. Concordia makes you spiritually and intellectually uncomfortable. Whatever you thought you knew when you came here, you had that challenged. And some of us radically changed our beliefs. And some of us have held on to the beliefs we came with even more. But all of them were challenged. And that is intrinsically uncomfortable. We seem to have an existential crisis at a rate of about twice a semester, or for some of us, twice a week. But through that common discomfort, we've grown. We've grown from freshmen, wide-eyed and somewhat knowledgeable, to graduates, wise and sleep-deprived. So what was it all for? Why did we put ourselves through 4 years of discomfort? Why did we go through 2 years of enduring questions and ideas? Just in case any of you did not get the memo, the ideas are still enduring. The questions are still unanswered. Sometimes I think they only made us read Don Quixote so we would have a narrative to compare our college careers to. Unbearably long, complicated, and left with a slight feeling of madness. Those of you who read that are laughing. Those of you who didn't are laughing now. So if we leave this hall today with a sound argument for what we believe, we have earned our degree. If we can enter the world and not just take part in the important conversation, but compel others to do so also, we have earned our degree. There's a British romantic comedy that's almost as enduring as anything Plato or Aristotle have written, called Love Actually, in which the Prime Minister of England says, "We might be a small country, but we're a great one too." I had to get my reference to England in here somewhere. I think the same can be said of us. We might be a small graduating class, but we're a great one too. As we disperse into the world, we will share what we've learned with others. We can show everybody else that you can believe in something. You can devote yourself to a value and hold that value to be true. That's why it's a value. You can demonstrate the power of humility to someone when you say, "You know what? I had never thought of that. You are right." That will really grab people's attention. We live in a world where no one is allowed to change their mind. 100 years ago, in 1918, after years of stalemate, after years of trench warfare where each side had dug into the ground and no progress was made, the First World War was finally won. As graduates of Concordia 2018, let us end this intellectual stalemate. Let's show that we can play football, or soccer, with the other side on Christmas Day, and let's show that we can fight the tough fights. We can fight inequality, bigotry, racism, and all other forms of discrimination with goodness, truth, and beauty, with faith, hope, and love. Proverbs 25:15 says that patient persistence pierces through indifference. Gentle speech breaks down rigid defenses. And Peter writes in his first epistle, "In your hearts, honor Christ Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect." Whether you're a Christian or not, this should still apply. Always be prepared to make a defense for what you believe and for what you value, but do it with gentleness and respect. My good friends, when we leave here today, let us not become bystanders. Let us not become passive, detached, and hopeless. Let us become the generation that strives for a better society of active engagement, progress, and hope for a better future. Let us believe in something. So, class of 2018, what do you believe? Thank you.